Ever wish you had a perfect memory for when you last watered or fertilized any of your plants? Our plant tracker can remember for you. In this next installment of my Notion for Beginners series, I'm going to walk you through creating a simple yet powerful plant care history logger that automatically keeps track of each and every watering and fertilizing event. We'll set up a related database, which is very simple, update our buttons to do some automated work on our behalf, and get a couple extra nifty stats out of some roll-ups. As I said, everything is very simple, yet it's incredibly powerful, and I'm looking very forward to showing you how it works. Let's get started. Alrighty, we're back in our Notion for Beginners hub, and per usual, I'm going to make a quick copy. I did that by selecting and then hitting Control-D on the keyboard. And you'll see that it's duplicating. That little animation that just popped up at the bottom of the screen, I think that's new, and it's very handy because, as I said in the last few videos, it takes a second sometimes. We're going to remove that. We'll update this to 1.0.4, and then this video is about relations and rollups. As a reminder, new line, Shift-Enter on the keyboard. And then we're going to blank that video out of there, and the link will be there by the time you get to this. Alrighty, let's open this up. And we're where we left off in the previous video. Today, the goal is to build a history logger. So every time that we modify this by choosing water or fertilize, it would be great if we could keep a running record of each of those events so that it's easy to tell when we made changes to our plants. It's helpful in just general knowledge about your plants, also in diagnosing any problems. If you use this regularly and consistently, you'll know that I watered my oxalis 3 days ago, and then 6 days before that, and 5 days before that, et cetera, and it'll help you in diagnosing any problems that occur in the future. We're going to do this by setting up a related database, and I know that relation term sounds a little scary, but it really isn't. It just means we're going to create a new database, and we're going to link our current one to that, and that's the relation part. So let's do that. I'm going to come down here, I'm going to type /, and we'll enter database, and we want one inline. First thing I'm going to do here is give this a name, and let's unhide the database title here and see how we named this. So this is Houseplant Tracker Database. So we'll name that Houseplant Tracker Log Database. As a refresher, I always like to insert the word database at the end of any database title to help me differentiate between pages and databases in search results. It's quite handy. So I do recommend that you stick the word database on the end. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is rename the name property, and we'll call this date time. We're not actually going to change the type here. You can't change the type. We can't make this a date property, but that's not the important thing. We want to track when the record was created, and this is where we're going to do it. You'll see how that works in just a minute. But the next thing we're going to do is set up our very simple relation. We want to tell Notion that this log database is related to the main tracker database. So let's add a property. Scroll down and choose relation. I've got all of these entries here, and I have stuff from other pages populating, and I can tell which ones are the right ones because I've worked with this enough. But just to be sure, if you get into a situation where you're working with something and there are similar names here and there, and you want to be sure you've linked the right thing, what I can do is just come back to the names and insert some funky character that we'll eventually delete. But let me add this. I'll just add a hyphen to this one and a hyphen. Actually, I'll add a hyphen to that and a plus to this, just so that we can tell the difference between them when I'm looking in the list. It's just a quick tip. So we'll hit relation, and we want to relate the Houseplant Tracker Log database to the Houseplant Tracker database. So we need to pick the one that has a little plus tacked on the end. Now, this field is the name of the property that's going to appear here. So what we want to call this is simply Houseplant. And then we want to turn on the two-way relation. We want it to show up both on our log as well as on our main database. So I'm going to turn this on, and it's going to prompt me to fill out what we want the name of the property to be on the main database. So up there, we want it to be log entries. And then just a quick note, we're going to leave the limit alone. We don't want to limit it to just one page. We want to make sure that there can be as many as we want. So we'll leave that as it is, and it'll say no limit. We'll hit add relation. And you'll see here we've got our houseplant property, and then now there's this new log entries property up on our tracker database. Let me show you really quickly what the relation does, and then we'll work with it for real in a second. So I'm going to add a new entry, and yes, this is date time, but I'm just going to insert random text. I'm going to insert A, B, C, D, E. Now let's say the snake plant had a log entry of A, B, C, D. This is just nonsense. I just want to show you the mechanic. So I'm going to click here, and you'll see that entry appears here. And now those records are related to each other. I could create a new entry and call it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I could relate a plant to it this direction. So I could say the lemon tree, or for instance, the jade plant is related to that. And you'll see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 appears here, and these two plants appear here. Now, down here, we're only going to want one entry to be allowed. But up here, we want each plant to be able to have multiple log entries. So every time I hit watered on the snake plant, I'm going to have a new entry for snake plant, but it's going to have that plant in the houseplant property multiple times. All right, let's back these records out of there. And as I do that, you'll see that they disappear from here because they don't exist anymore. Now, we want to capture some information beyond just the date and time and which plant. It would be handy to know a few things about each plant. We want to copy maybe the health. We'd like to know that for each one. The status would be handy. And then also it'd be nice to know whether this record was for a watering or a fertilizing. So let's create those properties. First one we'll do is health, and that one is already a number property, so we'll keep it that way. And we'll call this health. And we're going to match the icons, and I should update the icon for the relation in just a second. So we'll do that. This one, we should give it an icon. We'll also do this up here. And I know that I want this icon, which is a list. And then we're going to continue with the rest of the properties that I mentioned. We'd like to capture the status. Now you can do this a few different ways. You could set up another status property. You could set up a select property. Probably easiest to just do it as a text property, so it will capture the text of whatever is there, because that's all we need. We don't need the list of all the statuses. We just need to know what it was. So we'll call this status. And then we'll give it an icon. And what I can say is that status icon isn't available. Oh, they actually added it. That's great. It wasn't available before, but now it is. So we'll give it the status icon, which is perfect. It used to not be available as one of the icon options. Don't know why, but I'm glad it is now. And then the last property we really need to track is which action we took. So this one I'm going to give a select type, and we'll call this action. And then I'm actually probably just going to leave this icon because there isn't a single icon that represents fertilizing and watering. I mean, we could give it another plant icon, I suppose. Sure, cactus is fine. And then I'm going to move this in. And so these are the properties that we are going to capture whenever we click one of these buttons. So the next thing we need to do is we need to edit the button automations for both watered and fertilized to populate a record each time the button is clicked. This is very simple. So we're going to come here, we're going to choose Edit Automation. When the button is clicked, we already have something that edits the existing page. So it says this page right here. That means the record that we clicked the button for is going to be modified. So we don't want to edit that block. We want to add a new action, and we want to add page 2, and we're going to select our minus database. Again, this is why I did that, so that it's easy to spot, so we're not having to kind of guess from the list. And then this will allow us to create a new record with multiple properties, and all we have to do is populate those fields. So date, time, we're going to edit this as a formula, and then we'll put now here with open close parenthesis, and that will insert the current date and time when the record is created. Then we're going to edit the rest of the properties. So we're going to edit the houseplant property, and this is where we can link it to this page. That allows us to create a dynamic link to the page that we're currently editing. From there, we'll choose action, and because this is the watered button, we will set this to watered. I don't know if I have to, okay, we'll come back to that. I actually forgot to create the properties, so we'll do that in just a sec. We'll come back. I'll leave it for now. We're gonna hit edit this. We're gonna edit the health. And then this one, we wanna make sure that we're copying whatever the health is. So we'll edit it as a formula, choose this page dot health and save. And then the last one is the status, and we'll do the exact same thing, this page status and save. All right, let's set that, and then we're gonna add our actions. So we'll say watered and fertilized. And you'll notice that when I hit save on this, when I hit enter, it's gonna change it because we set this as a single select, not a multi-select, so it can only have one of the two. And then just because I'm a little fussy, let's make water blue and fertilized green. Cool, we'll delete that sample, and then we'll modify this, edit the automation, and choose watered here now, because those appear because I created them, and then hit save. Now, when we hit watered, what should happen? You'll see a new record was created with the date and time that I hit the button, and all the rest of the stuff populated. Health is empty because health is empty here. So let's enter something. Let's enter 75, and then we'll try it one more time, and you'll see that's exactly what we got. We got all the pieces that we wanted, and now we have a running log of each entry for watering. So let's do the oxalis, and you'll see that those values come right through. Perfect. To make this work for fertilize, we just got to do the exact same thing except for fertilizer. So we're going to choose add action, add page 2. We'll choose that minus database. Again, we're going to come here, edit as a formula, and insert now. And I hit Control Enter on my keyboard to save that. And then we'll fill out the rest of these. And I just like doing them in the order that they are. It's just a fussy thing. So we'll choose houseplant because it's next. This page, action, we'll choose fertilized, health, this page, dot health, and finally status. Oh, it didn't save. Got to do that one more time. This page, dot health, save, and then this page, dot status, and save. And then we can test it. Great. So now we have that. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to choose houseplant, the property, and then I'm going to choose group so that all the records appear together. And then we could, if we wanted to, sort this ascending or descending, probably do descending in this case so that the most recent shows up on top. Save that. And then what I also like to do, I'm going to create one other view, and I'm going to create it as a table, and I'm going to leave it sorted, again, descending. So this way I have a primary list of all the records in one place versus the grouped one. Sometimes it's handy, you never know, and I like to do this. So we're going to rename this, and I always give this the infinity icon because it's everything. And I can say either unfiltered, in this case it's ungrouped, and then we can rename this view and say grouped, and we'll give this a folder icon. Cool, so now I have these, and this will just work. It'll just work. It'll allow me to capture every time I make a change to the water or fertilize. It'll bring that down. I could, if I wanted, add a notes column and then type those notes in, and those could be copied down. It's very handy, and it happens automatically. Every time I click one of these, I will get a new group. And what plant did I click? I did click ZZ plant. And I'll get a new group if it's not already there, and then the record will just keep updating as we go. Now, as we're talking about relations, it's also worth talking about roll-ups. So we're going to insert what I think is a little bit of an unnecessary metric, but it could be fun to keep track of this if you want to. It can't hurt. But I wanted to show you what a roll-up does, and I'm going to show you two different ways. So what I want to do is I want to get a couple records for one plant. So we've already got a couple for the snake plant. Let's get 2 more watered for snake plant, which is down here, and then 1 more fertilized so that we have, 3 watered and 2 fertilized. Roll-ups allow us to pull together information about the related records in our related database. So the simplest way is just to show you with a very basic example. Let's say for the snake plant and all the rest of our records, we'd like to have a count of how many entries there are overall in the database. So if I wanted to, we can turn that on down here just to show you what I'm talking about. If I come here, hit calculate, count, and count all, the oxalis has 1, the snake plant currently has 5. Let's do another ZZ plant just so you can see. And that count will happen here. Now, maybe you want to be able to quickly see at a glance how many actions you've taken on each plant. You do that with a roll-up. So we're going to choose add property and roll-up. Now, roll-ups require a related database. If you don't have one, this won't work because it doesn't make sense. There wouldn't be anything for it to roll up. So we're going to edit this roll-up here, choose the relation, and we've only got our one relation. Now, you can have others, but we only have one in this case, so I'm going to choose log entries. In this case, we just want a simple count, so we can leave it to the date time property, but there are other options here as well. You can do lots of things, but let's say your related database was, for instance, a list of dollar amounts, right? Let's say there was some reason that we were tracking how much we bought and sold things for. If we had a dollar amount, and this doesn't have to be just dollars, it could be any number, you could do a sum instead of a count. Now, it doesn't appear here because this isn't a number property, but I'm just giving you an example. And I could sum up, let's say there were 15 entries and they all had $1 in them. I could get it to show the sum of all those entries here, and it could say $15. In this case, all we need to do is count all, just like we did on the record below. And you'll see here, there's 5 there. There's 1. Actually, let's really quickly, now that we're off the edge, we're going to freeze that so we can see it. There's 1 oxalis, there's 5 snake plant, and 2 ZZ, and those match up here. Okay, that might be handy, right? We could give this property the name number actions or something like that. But what's probably more handy is to be able to see how many times we watered and how many times we fertilized separately from each other. That takes a little bit more effort, but nothing crazy. And I've been testing Notion's new AI formulas feature, and oh boy, does it work well. So let's do that instead of typing out the formula ourselves. So we've got this roll up here. I'm gonna leave it for right now. We'll delete it, but for right now, let's just leave it. Let's add a new property, and this time we're gonna add a formula. Now, you can do a flavor of rollups using formulas. Basically, you can tell Notion to access the relation in a formula and then do stuff on it. In this case, we want to filter our entries based on whether they were watered or fertilized. Okay, the nice thing now is that we don't have to figure that out on our own, because Notion has this new nifty little explain a formula AI field. And so what we can enter here is in plain text what we want to do, and Notion will figure it out. So I'm going to say via our log entries relation, count the related entries where the action property is watered. Now, I probably didn't have to get that technical with my language, but more precise usually gets you a better result. Let's see what it does though. Let's submit that. And now it says it's reasoning. Sometimes it says thinking. And after a second, it's going to start filling out the formula itself. And honestly, I did this before on a completely separate database, and it gave me exactly this. So like it knows what it's doing. But let's just talk through it really quickly. What I'm going to do here is just hit done, and then we're going to edit it again just so we can talk through, but I wanted to make sure that it's saved. So what it's doing is it said, go to the log entries property and then filter for actions watered and then return the length. When it returns this data under the filter, it returns it as an array, a list of values. And so that's why it's not doing count, but length. It wants the length of the array. And so that's why it generated the formula like this. Now, remember we created some entries for our snake plant. Let's come back down here and recall that we have 3 watered and 2 fertilized. So I didn't actually look, but I assume should be in that field. For the snake plant record, it should say 3. Let's see if it does. Sure does. Let's add another one. And there it goes. It updated to 4. So that's automatically calculating that for us. And now we can duplicate this. And I need to go back and actually give these names. But it's very easy to edit this formula and change this to fertilized. Now, one thing I will point out with this is that this is hard-coded to look for the exact phrase fertilized as it is. So we can save this and it should work, which it does. And we can give these a name. I'll come back to that in just a second. Number watered and number fertilized. And then I guess I should give these their icons, right? So if I recall, we've got this little daisy. And then this one here is this little water drop. And so now we can calculate those. And you'll see that these two total, which makes perfect sense. We can delete this at this point. We don't need it. And then the thought that I stopped in the middle of is if I edit this to change this to be anything else, let's say for some reason I just wanted it to say water, I don't know why, that's going to break my formula here because it's looking for that exact phrase the way it is. So that's just something to be aware of when we do things in a hard-coded way like that. We'll put that back to watered, and now our pseudo rollups are calculating the number of times we watered and fertilized. And we can keep these here, we can hide these properties, but I think that those are really handy, maybe not from a practical standpoint, but more from a now you know how to use those things standpoint. And you've seen how to use the AI field for writing formulas. I'm going to tell you, that works surprisingly well. And it generated in my testing some very robust formulas, and it's totally worth giving a shot. I actually have been using, like, I know how to write these formulas myself and could have written that myself, but why? Like, it does it and it works. So if you're not familiar with formulas, or even if you are and you want to save some time, give that a shot for sure. Alrighty, that's all for this video on relations and rollups. As I told you at the beginning, it's pretty straightforward. These are very simple concepts. Once you get your head around them, they're very easy to use, especially relations. I think people hear that word and they kind of seize, and it's really just, I want to create a link between records in 2 different databases. That's it. So now we've got our history logger set up. In the next Notion for Beginners video, in fact, what will likely be the last Notion for Beginners video, we're going to turn our tracker into an even more organized system that basically runs itself. In that video, I'll show you how to build automations so that you can get next watering and next fertilizing dates automatically. I have an AI trick that I think you'll find really handy for figuring out what the frequency should be. And then we'll use Notion's automations in the background to make everything happen automatically. So if you're ready for that, tap the video on the screen and I'll see you there in just a second.